Okay, everyone, so today we're going to get into the last of our dictator in this Rise of Dictators series, if you will, and that will be Adolf Hitler. And this is going to be kind of a two-parter, kind of break it up a little bit. I think one part would make a little bit too long of a video. And so let's just get right into it. I'm not going to talk about his childhood or anything like that. We don't know a lot anyway. We're just going to talk about what are the important things that kind of lead him to do what he does in the future. And it really starts in 1907 when he moves to Vienna in Austria, where he was born, to try to get into the art school there, the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. And he fails because, frankly, he wasn't that good. But sadly, it would have been nice had he got in because maybe some of the awfulness wouldn't have occurred. However, it is also at this point that he becomes really enamored with all things German, and he loves their culture. And as a result, in 1913, he will eventually move to Munich in Germany. And in Munich, he is going to kind of do really like odd jobs and stuff. But again, he's really going to dive into the culture. And then something else that really starts to get formed, and the ideas that he really starts to get into more of are anti-Semitism. He starts reading some books that had existed before about Aryans and the strength of the German quote-unquote race, and so a lot of those negative things that he will use in the future will influence at this time too. And then in 1914, when this picture was taken, as you see a young Hitler there, Germany does declare war in World War I. That is a rally that was held with the announcement of war, and Hitler is all sorts of excited. He will join the German army. He'll be a pretty good soldier. He doesn't ever get any leadership opportunities. Most people did not. Most of his superiors did not see him fit enough to lead, which is interesting based on what he ends up doing. But he was awarded a number of medals. Almost dies a couple times, but doesn't. And after the war, he will return home to a Germany that is a mess. And it is this Germany that is a mess that is going to give him the opportunities to succeed. And that is mainly because of the Treaty of Versailles. And on the picture on the right here, I think you can see this really does kind of specify what the Treaty of Versailles did. But just as a reminder, what it does is it takes huge amounts of land away from Germany. It charges them reparations that completely obliterate the economy. They were supposed to stay in debt until 1986. The German mark, at one point, you could get 4 billion with a B German marks for $1. They lost a lot of that land. They lost had coal in it, and they were also forced to pay a portion of their coal each year to France. That's not good. As a result, you had kind of uprisings or strikes against the army, or not the army, I'm sorry, the government, like, I don't call them uprisings because it's not like a full-blown revolution, but like demonstrations and stuff like that. And then in a bizarre thing, the government technically wasn't also in charge of the army, so you had a division of power that made for a weakened government. And because of that, those economic issues and reparations, for instance, by December of 1930, Germany will have over 4.4 million people unemployed, and all of it is blamed on the government. The Weimar Republic is the one that's in charge. It's the one that can't do anything, so this is their fault. Now, what we do know about Hitler is in 1919-ish, 1920, he will join the German Workers' Party, or the National Socialists, and that is a picture of him speaking at a meeting. And in 2 years, he will come to control this party. And as part of him controlling it, he is going to create this organization known as the SA, or the Sturmleitung, maybe? Which acted as his own security, and he also used it to defend the party. He also used it to attack other people. A lot of the people in here were criminals, or, honestly, like gang members, ex-military, a lot of people who are just angry at the current conditions that Germany were in. And the SA would grow and grow into basically his own private army. Now, in 1922, in order to promote the Nazis, he goes on a speaking tour in order to try to get more men. And on that speaking tour, one of the big things that he talks about is this idea of Lebensraum, or living room, that the Germans need to expand and get their land back, that the powers of the world have robbed them of the land and their ability to grow as a nation. He also hits things like German pride. He attacks the Treaty of Versailles. He talks about education. He does also at this time start to push for he will throw in anti-Semitic comments every now and again, like setting up what he's going to do. Like, the crazy part for me, and the thing that always disturbs me the most about Hitler, is that he had things kind of set up years in advance, and all of these awful and evil things that he did, it's like he knew he was going to get them done. And so in 1923 he does this, and the party starts massively growing, and we get into 1923 and he's like, I'm going to try to take over the government. And indeed, in 1923, something known as the Beer Hall Putsch, because it literally starts in a beer hall, was this plan, this ill-conceived plan for Hitler and the Nazis to take over the government. I'm not going to get into specifics, but I'm just going to let you know that it's a failure. Hitler gets like beat up. So here are actually some men that were there to try to fight for the Nazis. Here's a massive crowd outside the beer hall. It basically fails. He's arrested. He's put on trial for treason. But in a bizarre turn of circumstances, treason, you're thinking life in prison, you're thinking execution, but somehow he defends himself so well that he's actually only sentenced to 5 years in a minimum security prison. As you see here, this is him in prison. So, I mean, this guy's got a little musical instrument. I mean, this is some visitors that were here to see him. Like, it really, I mean, you could get your picture taken in prison. It wasn't that bad. He ends up getting out in like 9 months anyway. But here's the big thing. He realizes that if he's going to take over Germany, he has to find a way to do it legally. And that is what's going to like structure the next moves that he's going to make. While he's also in jail, he starts writing and working on his awful book, Mein Kampf, which I call here the beginning of the madness. It is in Mein Kampf, which gets published in 1924, that he has his basic political and societal ideas, the ideas of that, society should be based on discrimination, that the Aryans are the supreme race of the world, and all great things that have occurred in the world are linked to that. And he gives a lot of like bogus archaeological evidence, but no one really challenges that, so people will take it in. And that indeed that they should conquer other people because all other cultures actually become better when in contact with the Aryans. And this idea, which by the way, a lot of nations held in the 1920s, because you still have the imperial world of dominating Africa and Asia by Europe, is that there are greater cultures in the world and lesser cultures in the world, and greater cultures have every right to conquer lesser cultures if they can and want to. So he also starts to synthesize his ideas against the Jews, and most importantly, and this is why he gets so many people in this idea that not only are the Jews he degrades them as a lower race, but he also points to them as a threat. And that's really crucial. One line from Mein Kampf is the greatest counterpart to the Aryan is exemplified by the Jew. Now, this is really important that you need to understand. And so why would so many people go after Jews, and why would so many people, support the Nazis? And maybe some did it out of fear, but he convinced people that these were folks that were going to try to take over the world, that were going to try to take over the Aryans, that they're scary and they need to be removed. And let's be honest, when people are scared, they tend not to act really smart, and they can get sucked right into this. He also puts the idea of that Germany would be the Third Reich, or the Third Rule. The first one was the Holy Roman Empire. The second one was the First German Empire, and then they would be the next one. So how does he get, the Nazis going on? First and foremost, he basically officially makes it as a full-fledged party. But the key thing was that everyone in the party would express loyalty to him as the Führer, okay, the leader. And an actual quote was that a good National Socialist Nazi is one who would let himself be killed for his Fuhrer at any time. What he is doing is creating almost a cult of fanatics that would do anything for the Fuhrer because he was going to take Germany back from what the French and the British and the Americans and everybody did to Germany after World War One. Okay, he is also going to increase his numbers of the SA, who would now member in the hundreds of thousands. That is an SA, it's a colorized picture, but that is an SA rally on the bottom there. You can see huge amounts of numbers of them, and they would commit violence, and it was getting pretty scary. So now he's going to try to move them to get involved in politics. And in 1928, there were elections for the German Reichstag. Now, the German Reichstag, or the German legislature, worked a little bit differently. You actually didn't vote for people. You voted for parties, and then the percentage of the vote that you would get, that's how many seats you would get. So let's just say there's 100 seats in the Reichstag. There were more, but we're just going to keep it simple. And you got 10% of the vote, you got 10 seats. And so in 1928, they didn't do too well. They only got 2.8% of the vote, but they remobilized. They work on National Socialists, so they had a lot of workers in their party, but now they're going to go to the middle class and rural areas and talk about how the government has basically ruined everything and how they're going to radically change everything. And in 1930, massive success. Nazis get 18% of the vote. They were actually one of the largest parties in the Reichstag, and and they then run a propaganda campaign against the Chancellor of Germany. Now, Germany had a president who basically signed the laws into being, but the Chancellor is who actually ran the country, okay? And so the Chancellor of Germany at the time, I'm not going to get into names, he was really struggling. He couldn't get anything passed through the Reichstag, mainly because the Nazis did everything they could to stall him out. And he actually had to pass emergency decrees without the Reichstag, which gave the Nazis more ammunition to show how the government was failing and that they needed to grow. And thus 1932 happened, and Hitler decides to run for the presidency. The Nazis have almost 1 million members in their party. The SA, with the addition to the SA having over 500,000, this is crazy. They run a campaign on the greatness of Hitler and their goals to create a classless society and the glory of German culture and all that type of stuff. And in the end, Hitler actually loses to the current president, Paul von Hindenburg. You might remember from my early videos, Paul von Hindenburg is a World War I hero. He was basically the most beloved man in Germany. He's the only guy that could actually have beaten Hitler. But he's like 84 or 85 years old. He's really struggling at that point. But he does end up beating Hitler for power. Okay. But we're not over. Hitler then, his party is still strong. He unleashes more of his propaganda, specifically by that man on the left, Joseph Goebbels, against the Chancellor of Germany. He actually links the Chancellor of Germany to a plot to overthrow the government. Oh, the irony on that. And through that propaganda, as well as uprisings in the Reichstag, he is able to get that chancellor fired, and Paul von Hindenburg now names Adolf Hitler Chancellor of Germany. And because of the uprisings and everything that was going on at the time, he also, in 1932, will give Hitler, quote unquote, emergency powers to get him to be able to settle everything down. And what Hitler then does is he uses his influence to basically get the SA to take over most of the jobs in the police and security in Germany. And at the same time, he's getting support from industrialists and the wealthy because he has ideas to better the economy. And he's basically a half a step away from coming into complete control of the government. Okay, so that is kind of part one here of him getting to power. To the next video, I'll talk about his official getting of all power, and then some of the things that he immediately does in Germany. Okay, see you guys soon. Thanks for watching.